It's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank, and I mean, but with it being exhibition, it makes sense.
I'm gonna start like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. They just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
Went to a boxing's most talked about figures, YouTuber turned fighter Jake Paul and pound-for-pound powerhouse Gervonta Tank Davis. Prepare to collide. Legends of the sport are already weighing in. Davis brings his trademark knockout power, blistering speed, and experience against top-tier opponents. Paul, on the other hand, steps in with size, reach, and the confidence that's fueled his improbable rise. Many boxing icons predict Tank will control the bout with his timing and precision. Yet some believe Paul's physical advantages and unpredictability could turn this into one of boxing's biggest upsets in recent memory.
You know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up, because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that of course he's going to win. And of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92 pound weight difference. Almost a 100 pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65 pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, I just beat the man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Meanwhile, the location for the fight has officially been changed. Instead of Atlanta, Jake Paul will now face Gervonta Davis on November 14th at the Casilla Center in Miami. MVP Promotions announced on social media, the war is no longer in Atlanta. Jake Paul versus Gervonta, Tank Davis are taking over Miami. Same date, same fight, new city. The bout will stream globally on Netflix. While many have labeled it a spectacle, official statements confirm it will be an exhibition match. However, the major talking point remains the size difference between the two. In his most recent fight, Paul weighed in at approximately 199.4 pounds, competing as a cruiserweight, whereas Davis has been fighting around 135 pounds in his latest bouts. Due to that vast gap, Davis's WBA lightweight title will not be on the line for this event.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV show.
Even though the exact terms of the fight have not yet been fully disclosed, there is still no official confirmation regarding the contract weight, number of rounds, or whether the bout will follow standard professional boxing rules. This uncertainty has only intensified debate among fans and experts. Many view the matchup as more of a crossover spectacle than a legitimate sporting contest, raising serious questions about fairness, safety, and the integrity of boxing's weight class system.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're going to do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're going to spot us some pound. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you. Apparently, boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a...
Terence Crawford has expressed clear skepticism toward the upcoming bout between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis, pointing directly to the major size disparity as the main issue. He views the event as more of a spectacle than a true boxing contest, comparing it to a glorified sparring session rather than a legitimate fight. While Crawford fully acknowledges Davis's elite skill, explosiveness, and championship pedigree, he cautions that Paul's natural size and power could dramatically alter the outcome if he lands clean. Still, Crawford doubts the matchup will unfold under standard professional conditions, arguing that such a weight gap strips the event of any claim to competitive balance or fairness.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank.
Shakur Stevenson, himself an undefeated and technically gifted fighter, views the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis matchup as heavily one-sided due to the stark size difference. Despite that, Stevenson believes Davis's superior experience, precision, and ring IQ would make the fight appear effortless on his part. He predicts Davis would outclass Paul through smart movement and sharp fundamentals rather than raw power. In Stevenson's opinion, Paul lacks the technical polish to handle a boxer of Davis's caliber, and the fight would likely end in a clear decision victory for Tank. Still, Stevenson has criticized the bout's very concept, calling it a spectacle that undermines boxing's seriousness. But he remains confident that Davis's skill level is far beyond anything Paul can match.
He's here when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and said he's got good power. Not even and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch, and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the rumors of Tank and Jake fight?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. He called cap on it. So if he won't call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier offers a balanced take on the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis matchup. He praises Paul for having the courage to face a fighter of Davis's caliber, acknowledging the risk and reward that come with such a challenge. However, Cormier also points out the obvious disparity in size and weight, making it difficult to view the fight as fair under traditional boxing standards. He highlights that Davis holds a clear edge in skill, experience, and technical pedigree, while Paul's advantage lies in physical size and strength. Cormier notes that both fighters have something significant at stake. For Paul, a loss could undermine his growing credibility. For Davis, defeat against a much bigger opponent could tarnish his reputation. Though he refrains from making a firm prediction, Cormier slightly favors Davis based on pure boxing ability, while admitting that Paul's size advantage keeps the fight unpredictable.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas when Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul. I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is, but he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt, I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's a real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true. They're fighting.
Teofimo Lopez views the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis matchup as more of a spectacle than a sporting contest, emphasizing that it's driven by entertainment and financial gain rather than legacy or championship significance. He acknowledges that both fighters will benefit enormously, not just from the payday, but from the mainstream exposure such an event guarantees. While Lopez admits the fight lacks the prestige of a true title bout, he still sees its upside. In his view, even an exhibition-style event like this can help boxing by attracting new audiences and reigniting public interest in the sport. Lopez argues that blending personality, drama, and showmanship with boxing can keep the sport culturally relevant, even if purists may turn up their noses.
And I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know?
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You gotta fly hit me, yeah. A heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this gonna work?
Hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction? A show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, it's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
For competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. But yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
Yeah. And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so, you know, kudos to both guys. I'm not going to